Hello, welcome, good morning, namaskar. Sorry for this connectivity issue in the last moment. Apologies for that. A very warm welcome on this Saturday, almost afternoon, from Satyasai organization, the youth wing of Satyasai organization. Welcome to all the students who have gathered, our college students, young brothers and sisters. This program is part of the youth awareness program, or YAP as we call it. Those who do not who are joining Satyasai organization program for the first time. Satyasai organization is a spiritual and social organization. uh, as part of our social outreach, we have planned this session with on pathways to financial freedom. Now, you may wonder why we are having a financial event being a social organization. It is because uh, when we say that we want the entire society to be happy, an individual first has to be happy and satisfied and peaceful. And money plays a very important role in that. And we could not have a better speaker in at this event, Mr. Mukund Shishadri. Welcome, Mr. Mukund. Mr. Mukund is the founder of MS Ventures. He's a certified financial planner. His thoughts and his ideas are widely sought by Economic Times, Money Controls, and ET Now. He has been called on various events on various radio channels. Multiple smart financial organizations like HDFC and Tata EIG Insurance seek his thoughts. He has similar financial planning sessions with a lot of large organizations like Mahindra and Mahindra. I now invite Mr. Mukund to share his thoughts and commence this session. Brother Mukund.
Sairam to all. First and foremost, I'm very thankful to the Satyasai Seva Organization Youth Wing of the Mumbai Metro region to hold this session. And especially, I was very happy to know that this is predominantly a lot of youth and young college students would be joining it, because once you work on these principles, so we are going to have a session which is going to give you certain instructions, certain tools for you to start managing your finances going ahead, not just for the youth but for people in general. So in case we are able to follow these things in that particular principle, achieving financial freedom is not at all very difficult. Achieving a financial free life is not at all difficult. All it requires is certain amount of discipline and certain amount of concepts which we have to understand. I will now be sharing my particular presentation with you all. My request to all of you all is this is going to be about an hour or so, and there is a lot of things to cover. So generally, when I do sessions, I do it for a whole day, which is generally 8 hours to 9 hour session. We have tried to keep the crux of it or the important parts of it in this presentation. So please keep your mobile phones on silent. If possible, you have a notepad or a pen with you, please keep it with you. I will be mentioning certain points, and you would be, if you can note that down, it can really help you. So I'm just starting this off. Yeah. Okay. So, what exactly is the objective for today's session? The objective for today's session is to sensitize all of you to the concept of managing one's money, to concept of managing one's finances. Finances is not just about putting money and gaining some returns. It is a very holistic thing. And there are certain very important points in this which once you understand and do it in a very simple manner, you will tend to achieve the financial independence which you always seek. Let me tell you one thing. It's rightly said that money cannot give you happiness. I completely agree. But one of the important things is once you're sorted out in terms of your monetary, once that is not giving you a stress, that is not giving you attention, or that is not running your life, automatically what happens is there is a holistic living which comes into being. You are able to spend your life in a much more uh, bigger and a better way rather than just focusing on money as an aspect. So if this particular aspect of your life is handled, just like health is important, money is important, spiritual knowledge is important, mind is important, controlling the mind is important. All these things are important. Money is one of the important points which we need to understand. So today is going to be more of sensitization and certain 5-step process which I'll give all of you all, whether you are a student, whether you are in your mid 30s to 50s, whether you have retired. All these things can be used in an objective fashion for you to achieve your financial goal, right? Please understand one thing. This slide is the most important thing. So I have been conducting these sessions for so many years, and we have been doing so many financial plans. Let me tell you one thing. There is not a single plan which can be exactly the replica of another plan, or it is same like another plan. The reason is because it's a combination of quality and quantity. When I say what is quality, quality is our emotions, correct? The risk taking ability, the requirements which we have in life, the kind of life cycle we are actually in. These are the qualitative aspects of it, and the quantitative aspects are numbers, right? So how should I invest in equity market? Should I put it in debt market? Should I look at real estate? All that comes into quantity. The combination and the correct balance of this will actually lead you to achieve your financial success, correct? In most cases what happens is, especially I see a lot of interest in the youth today because you're seeing stock markets go up. As a matter of fact, in the last 6 months there have been Robin Hood investors, as they call it. The number of first time demat account people who have started their demats for the first time, and in the last 5-6 months in equity markets, whatever you have touched has turned gold. But that is not always the reality, correct? So we have to understand the holistic process, and your quality and quantity combination is going to lead you to the perfect financial plan, right? So in first part we will deal with the qualitative aspect, and in the second part we'll deal with the quantitative aspect, and certain quotes which are given by Swami which has made so much significance to one's life and to make in one's financial plan will also be covered here. So let's start, right? Before I start my particular session, this is a book I read during my MBA days. This is long time back, and it has nothing to do with finance. Okay, it is something which is totally a different concept. This is written by a very famous author called Alvin Toffler, and the book is called Future Shock, as you see it. What exactly did this book say? This book said that in the life of humanity, I'm not talking your and my life, I'm talking about humanity, few thousands of years, there have been certain times in the life of humanity where the speed at which things moved went really fast. Now, what am I saying? The speed at which things moved really fast is that this particular time period was called as a crossover. Crossover is a time period where things moved very fast. Now, what is the advantage and disadvantage of this crossover? Is that if you move with that speed, you go really ahead. And if you don't move that speed, you go really behind. There is no intermediate path at that point of time. And the first crossover happened when language was invented, correct? When people started speaking, so the information flow started happening really fast, and people started communicating fast. So those who understood language, who could speak language, they really went to a different tangent. But the people who could not do, they couldn't hold on for a long period of time. The second crossover happened when writing and printing was invented. So I could actually write a particular piece of my thought and actually print it and give it to so many people, and that actually influenced people's thoughts. So people who could do that really made a huge difference, right? And people who couldn't actually stayed back to a great extent. But the important part in the book is he predicted that the biggest crossover in the history of humanity has happened in 1970s when the microchip was invented. Now, what happens because of the microchip invented? He said that the era of 2000 to 2100, that is the 100 years, is going to be an era of crossover. That is, the speed at which things change are really going to be faster, and it is going to be a century of options. You will get so many options to choose from that you will end up getting confused. Okay, so I remember when I was a kid, right from my school days, we were told that your SSC percentage or your percentage which you got in 10th will actually decide your career. So if it was less than 50-60%, you have to take up arts. If it is 60 to 80%, you go to commerce. If it is 80 and above, you take up science, correct? So things were very sorted. Your percentage decided your career, correct? Third thing again, when I was very young, I remember there were only two kinds of cars which are available across. It used to be Fiat and Ambassador. You don't have much to choose from. Life was very simple that time, right? It was very, very systematic, and it was very simple. You had option A, option B, you had to choose either of them. Now things have drastically changed. Today, if you want to do a course in education, there are hundreds of options available. You want to buy a car, you can just think about it. Mobile phones were not there that time, and now over a period of time, you have innumerable options. But the same thing has also happened with investments, correct? 15, 20 years back, 25 years back, you didn't have to think much about investments, because all it was you were investing in post office schemes, you were investing in fixed deposit, certain gold was there in every family, mutual funds had hardly started off, a share market was there but not as vibrant as the way it is today. So these things were there. Today what has happened is, with the number of options available to invest, the investor is getting completely confused. Because if I look at a mutual fund, there are 2,500, 3,000 options. If I look at anything from an insurance perspective, there are so many options. If I look at real estate, there are so many options. So he's getting completely confused. And today, being the Google era, where you get so much of information across, you have certain investment option coming to you on WhatsApp, certain coming to you on emails, certain you see on TV, certain you discuss with your friends, and so a lot of other things are added which keep on coming from time to time. And today's investor is actually getting confused. Where do I put my money? Okay, especially people who are, students who are there in this presentation is very crucial, because in a matter of time you will start earning, or you will have some kind of an income, and this presentation today will be your benchmark as to how you can go about investing. The same applies to other category of people who are there, as in the other age groups of people who are there. So these are the various options today. I've just put the headings. If I get into products, believe me, last 15, 18 years I've been in this line. Every day we spend 1 or 2 hours researching on a new product. So there are so many things which keep coming. So today's investor is like that. He is virtually a little confused as to what he's supposed to do. Correct? So always we have this thing as to where should I put my investment. So I remember, personally, I started getting interested in personal finance from my school days. So in 7th standard, in my Hindi syllabus, subject, I had a subject called Nivesh. Nivesh in Hindi means investment, correct? And I somehow had so much of attraction in my 7th standard towards that chapter, where we had an option to leave it on choice. But I read it over hundreds of times, because somehow I was interested. And right from childhood, I used to go with my dad to the post office or to the bank and fill up those forms and things like that. So I always had a little bit of inclination towards investments. So those days, I remember, especially in my early college days, if anybody would ask me where to invest, I could just stand and talk for hours. Correct? I would say, if you put in PF, this would happen. National Savings Certificate, this will happen. If you put in UTI, this would happen. All those things. Today, after so many years and so many new options coming, if somebody asks me where do I invest, really I don't have an answer. The reason is because what makes sense for one person will not make sense for the other. As a matter of fact, I won't be, it won't be wrong in saying one person's asset becomes other person's liability. Correct? So you have to be very careful where to invest. How do you start your financial planning journey? And exactly what you are supposed to do systematically to be going there. The concept of quality and quantity. And I will be coming to quality, and then we will be coming to quantity. Right? So what is the solution to this problem? The solution to this problem is nothing but goal-based financial planning. Now, when I say goal-based financial planning is, whenever I talk to certain investors, I talk to people across, I ask them one question. He says, I want to multiply my money, correct? I want to get better returns. Now, the next question is, for what? The minute I ask the question, for what, 50 to 60% of the people don't have an answer to it. Okay, and believe me, this answer of why to invest is available to only you. No wealth manager, no financial planner, no fund manager, anybody can come and tell you why you should be investing. Why you should be investing is specific to you and your family. It could be as much as to buy the latest mobile phones which a lot of youth look at. It could be for travel. It could go ahead to look at buying a house. It could be to buy a car. it could be to travel, it could be to manage cash flows, it could be to do philanthropy, to do seva, it could be helping a particular cause, helping a particular relative, or it could also be to financially retire and not wanting to work for a single other day. Correct? All these things which have financial implications have are could be your goals. Now, these goals are very specific to people, very specific to person. For some person, having a particular asset is more important. For some person, having not that asset is not important. So many of the people in their 40s and 50s come to my office and tell, I ask them, when do you want to retire? So they say, sir, as early as possible. Thursday is also okay. So, it's very easy and very nice to try and look at a financial retirement early. But please understand, the money has to sustain for another 20, 30, 40 years. So what exactly you are supposed to do to be able to build it and then use it in a correct way for you to be able to go ahead. So the first and foremost thing is, unless and until you have a goal in your plan, you will not be in a position to start, or even if you start somewhere down the line, it could lead to a backlash. Correct? Simple example I give everybody. If I have to go from one place to another, I can either take a taxi or I can take an Uber, I can take an Ola. The first question which an Uber, Ola or taxi fellow asks me or a rickshaw fellow asks me is, Kidhar jana hai? Where do you want to go? Correct? I cannot sit into the taxi and Uber or a rickshaw just because it looks good. I have to sit because it has to take me to the destination. 90% of the cases, the problem happens in managing one's finances is because we sit into the rickshaw or the taxi because it looks good. Because the product has good features and benefits, I sit into it. I never realize whether it has to take me to point A or point B. And more often than not, what happens is I sit in a product just because it looks good. I want to go to point A, but I end up going to point B. So the most crucial example is, first important point is first to exactly write down. I'm again stressing on the fact write down, because it's a research which says that a human being gets more than 10,000 thoughts a day. Correct? So if a human being gets more than 10,000 thoughts a day, this is also a thought. At the end of the time, after some time, it will just waver away. So most important is you have to write this down in a proper way. You keep it in your laptop or wherever, but just put it down so that you know why I need to save. That has to be very clear even before you start your journey of financial planning, you start your journey of investments, you start any kind of thing. Correct? So that goal needs to be there. Only then you end up doing justice to your investments and it gives you the best possible returns within the contours of your risk and return parity. Am I clear? Right? Now, understanding a little bit about what are these kind of goals I'm talking about. Like here, I have written goals from across all age groups, because I know that there are students, I know there are youth here, I know there are people who are also senior members. So I have put everybody's. This is not exhaustive. It can go to an endless list, but generally these are the goals, right? This could be buying a phone, it could be travel, it could be medical emergency, it could be education and marriage of own of children, it could be fighting inflation. I'm going to talk about this. This is a very important point. What is inflation? Inflation is actually the cost, the value of money getting reduced, which we have heard a lot of time, we have read in economics, we have seen it many times, but the reality is going to be very different. Today's examples, today's presentation, I'll be giving you a lot of real life examples, because that is what makes a lot of difference. I've been dealing with almost 8 to 900 financial plans till date. So whatever experience I have gained, I'm trying to share as much as possible with you all. Correct? One could be also buying a house, certain cases renting it out also. And third is probably buying a car. So these are generally the goals, generally the requirements which people have. And you can always add to it. You can add retirement to it. You can add philanthropy to it. You can do, whatever you feel is correct. You can add to these particular goal sheets, right? So before I start, I want to tell you one thing very, very important, right? From the time we have been doing planning, however philosophical or theoretical it might sound, when we give somebody a questionnaire or when we ask somebody, why do you want to save? We first divide it into these two categories: needs and desires, right? And I'm not talking here something which is, philosophy or something. It is very, very practical. Now, why I'm saying needs versus desire? What is a need? Need is that without which I will not be able to survive. Desire is even if I don't get it, it is okay for me to survive. Now the problem what happens is, in most of the cases, your desires overtake your needs. Now because of that, let me tell you and let me make you understand what is the financial implication of it practically. Correct? For example, I have started saving. One of my important needs is that one fine day I want to live a financially free life. I don't need to work. After a point of time, I can relax, I can create a particular amount of wealth. And while I'm accumulating towards it, I have not made my goal sheet, I have not earmarked it to a particular thing, and suddenly a new iPhone is launched, which is sweepingly expensive. I cannot afford it. Okay, but then there is a company which comes and says, don't worry, I will give you a free EMI. It was never my need. It was never my need. I made it my need. I start diverting my funds towards it because I'm getting a very expensive phone at a 0% EMI, and I start accumulating it. Automatically one of the most important need for which it could have an accumulation is gone for a toss. Same thing happens in buying a car. My affordability to buy a car could be an X amount, but when I go to a car showroom, the first thing is the salesman says is, sir, this is 4,000 EMI, this is just 5,000 EMI. Now I feel the difference is just 1,000 rupees, but it is actually creating a huge impact in my liability. So while you write your goals, the first thing you have to write is whether it's a need or desire. I'll come to a particular exercise which you can actually write down, which after this session all of you all can do. Okay, and I request all of you all to do, because that will create a major clarity in you in terms of how do you manage your money. Correct? So first thing is needs versus desires. Please understand, needs are always very small. Desires have this potential to grab a need. So I have started saving for my retirement, which is a need, and suddenly I decide to make a travel plan. Oh, 1 year I've been at home, I have not gone out in COVID. Now let me actually start moving out. Let me spend some money. Not still now, maybe in some time. Okay. Similarly, lifestyle. Oh, I have not gone to a movie for so long. Now let us look at going bazaar over it. Nothing like that. Please understand, every desire comes at a cost of a need. Money is not unlimited. It has limited amount of usage which can be done. Correct? Now this is something I would like all of you, the next slide, to just note it down, how to write your goals. So this is the qualitative aspect of it before we move to the quantitative aspect of it. So why this qualitative aspect is required, as I told you, if this qualitative is not taken care of, it will have an hit on your quantitative as well. So the next slide, whatever I'm saying, I request all of you, if you have a notepad or pen next to you, to note down how to write your goals. Correct? There is just a 5-point thing, and this will give you clarity. Even today, while we give a questionnaire to any person or we tell them, what exactly you're supposed to do, at that point of time, this is the first sheet which they have to fill up. Right? So as I have put a picture of a pen here, so the concept is, it is not just symbolic, it is not just a PPT slide, but the reason is because I want you all to write it down or type it down. Either of the two is okay, but it should just not be in your thought, or it should not be in a paper which you will misplace it tomorrow. It has to be in a safe and secure place. Correct? First, as I said, whenever you write your goals, so you can write on the top goals and you can divide your page into half. What is a need and what is a desire? Okay, this is just the qualitative aspect of it. This bifurcation is very crucial. Correct? This will have the start of your plan. Second is quantification. How much? Correct? How much do I require? Why? I'll tell you, because goals are always very qualitative. I want a good car. रिटायरमेंट के बाद सुकून की जिंदगी चाहिए. I want to lead a very happy life. Okay, I want a good house. Now the combination of good, the combination of sukoon, right? And once I remember one of a client coming and telling us that मुझे बेटी की शादी धूमधाम से करनी है. Dhumdham is I want to have a very big wedding. Now the big wedding can differ from X amount to 2x to 3x to 10x. Correct? So what exactly do you mean? I need to go on a good holiday. I need to buy a good phone, or I need to probably look at going for a good abroad education. Now abroad education can range from 10 lakh rupees to go up to few crores. So exactly the quantification is very, very, very crucial in this particular case, right? So this is of a very important significance. I remember a small hilarious event which happened with me a few years back, where one of the clients had written on the questionnaire that I want to go for a world tour. Now I don't know what is a world tour. World tour has so many countries, right? So I asked him, world tour means what? So he said, no, I am not a planner. You decide. So I said, sir, you have to tell me what is a world tour, what is the cost. He said, no, you decide. So I am not very, accustomed with travel. So I called up one of my clients who works in this company called Cox and Kings, which is basically into travel. And I asked, somebody is asking for a world tour, what do you suggest? So he just noted down some important holiday destinations and countries, and he said, okay, these countries he can go to all these 20 countries, and it will be almost like a world tour. And this is in 2008-9. He said the cost of this is 1 crore, right? And 1 crore even today is a huge amount. That time it was a massive amount. So I called up the client and I said, sir, I got the amount, it is 1 crore, right? And it was a 20-30 second silence on the other side. And then he calls me after 5-10 minutes. He said, I have a discussion at home, we will be going to Sri Lanka. So I'm very happy to go to Sri Lanka. It's a very nice place, one of my favorite destinations. Only thing is, you have to be clear that you have to go to Sri Lanka, and you're not supposed to go to London, because the costing makes a difference, right? Similarly for a car, similarly for an education, similarly for buying an asset, similarly for any kind of a thing, quantification is the key. For all those people here who are married, let me tell you, this entire exercise has to be done with your spouse. Only then the clarity is perfect. The third is tenure. Okay, when do I want it? And the fourth is occurrence. When I say tenure and occurrence, certain goals will be one time, certain goals will keep happening over a period of time, every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years. This has to be mentioned. And please understand, it's always for the family. As I mentioned, people who are married and who have, or who are a part of the family, you have to involve others also to do this, because suddenly sometimes what happens is the goal was never in your radar and it turns up all the time, and it says that okay, this was always there but you never understood about it. So then the entire financial planning goes for the toss. So the first part of the planning is to understand your goals, and here I would like to make one small question. What is COD? Correct. So this was a slide which was told to me by my wife. She said, please put this there, because what is COD? COD is ceiling on desires, as Swami always says. And if you are able to do this, now I am not talking as a person from who follows Swami or things like that. I'm talking very practical. The minute you start putting ceiling on your desires, your needs are taken care very fast, very fast. After a point of time, psychologically you get used to that lifestyle. So you will be in a position where your lifestyle is simple, your monetarily you are taken care of, and life is very beautiful and very peaceful. And that is what end of the day all this would need to lead to. Correct? If you manage your money correctly, it has to be with a correct investment philosophy and ceiling on desires, automatically your finances will get sorted. And let me tell you, COD, ceiling on desires, it is not cash on delivery. Okay, it's not that you order from an Amazon or a Flipkart and they say COD means cash on delivery. No, it's not cash on delivery, it is ceiling on desires, right? So please keep stop to cash on delivery and focus more on ceiling on desires, right? And I'll tell you this scientifically, if you really want to understand how exactly should I understand whether it's my need or whether it's my desire, the best way to do is through a social cause, right? The reason is, we have scientifically seen and we have actually heard from a lot of people, and we have practically seen over the years, a family or a particular person who's involved in some kind of a social cause, some kind of a seva activity, automatically gets the sense, and the children in his house also get a sense as to what exactly is a need and what exactly is a desire. Once this is done, 90% of things are sorted out, because your lifestyle is very correct. You exactly know on what to spend your money. On the basis of that particular thing, your investment philosophy follows. You get the best kind of returns, and within that risk and return parity over a period of time, money also sustains for a future period of time, and your financial plan falls into place. Some kind of a social cause. I'm not saying it has to involve money. It can be your very much shramdan, as they say, spending your time. But once you get used to this, should be a part of your everyday life. It should not be something where you're doing it as a one-off thing. Once you get into this as a part of your life, automatically 80-90% of your goal planning is correct. And once your goal planning is correct, your financial planning is sorted, right? Please take this up, really important. And as Swami says, help ever, hurt never. This is a very, very profound thing, very profound. It looks like a very small sentence, but it has a very deep, in-depth meaning. Please let me tell you, once you get into this kind of an attitude, once you get into this kind of a system, automatically 80-90% and most of your issues in your life, financial and others, get automatically sorted. You don't have to do anything about it. It's an autopilot thing. And we have practically seen this in so many financial plans which we have done, that a family which is involved into seva activities, a family which is dying, then just by using certain important aspects of planning in a balanced way is able to achieve financial success. And this is not just once or twice, this is in almost all the cases which we see. Correct? Only thing is both have to come in a balanced way, which is very, very crucial. Right? So what is financial planning? It is basically the process of understanding your financial need. Financial need is achhi gaadi, अच्छा घर, good asset, okay, a great holiday. These has to be quantified the way I have mentioned that. And once you have done this, then you start your proper management of finances and resources, and things will be sorted. Correct? Just a small gift, a brief of what financial planning actually includes. It's not just about investment. First is about cash flow and debt management. Let me tell you, especially to all the youngsters, please get into the habit of tracking your expenses. Whether it is through an Excel sheet, whether it is through apps. I generally don't recommend apps to a great extent because a lot of data security is an issue. But one of the best things to do is an Excel sheet. I still do it right before I was married or even after I'm married for the last so many years. Even now, me and my wife sit every month and we actually discuss what has been our monthly expenses, and we track every bit of the expenses. What it tells you is, it tells you a lot about yourself. Okay, it tells you where you are spending. Is it a need? Is it a desire? And automatically you are always in track. It is just like weight management. Sometimes we don't keep checking our weight and it keeps on increasing to a great extent, and then suddenly we get an alarm bell, and then we start fasting, or we start cutting down on things drastically. We try to do something like that, and then we try to get it down, and then again we leave it, again it goes out. Okay, the same thing happens here also. So cash flow and debt management is crucial. Once you get into the habit of tracking money, it will become a habit. After that, nobody has to tell you. You'll automatically track your expenses. Debt management is loans. Please remember, loans, use it for a requirement, not for fulfilling your desires as much as possible. Okay, so many times you would see that just by paying a little extra EMI, you get that extra big house, you get that extra big car. Everything extra comes with a cost, and especially all those people who are complaining of a big house and a small house. I think in lockdown month they started sweeping their houses. They all realized and satisfied that, oh, very good, we have a big house, right? So please understand that debt management and cash flow is the backbone. That is the first thing. Second is risk and insurance, to an extent life insurance, but most importantly, please focus on health insurance, because you have to start building this. This can be a money drainer over a period of time. Correct? Asset allocation, I'll be covering it briefly very soon, which is how do I allocate my asset. It should be like eating a thali. So in a thali, how do I have carbs, I have protein, I have rice, I have dal, I have bath, everything. Same thing, you should have a combination by means of which you could have gold, you could have equity, you would have debt, to an extent real estate, liquid money. All this as a combination which would actually give you a good financial plan. 90% cases, people get attached to one particular asset class. He will either buy a lot of gold, he will either put too much in equity, he will either put too much in debt, and after a point of time, the it probably jeopardizes your entire concept of balanced financial plan. And that's the issue. Taxation planning, very crucial. You have to follow it very closely, because end of the day you have to understand the post-tax returns, and taxations keep changing almost on every budget. So you need to understand how that is going to have an implication on your financial plan. Well, distribution is clue. Basically, when do you need the money? And especially people who are in their mid 30s, 40s, or even elders, making your will or estate planning is of crucial importance, because that has a lot of benefits. We won't be covering it today because that's a topic by itself. But get into estate planning is very, very crucial. But for people who have just started off their careers, are going to start off, well distribution is when I would be actually requiring my money, and how should I plan that my money cash flow should come. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, a financial plan is a failure if I don't get specific funds for a specific time for a specific purpose. If I, for my requirement, if I don't get the required amount of money which I require, automatically the financial plan is of no use. If there is somebody unwell at home and I require money, it should be available. If I'm retiring and the money should be available, it should not be just parked into places where it has got a lock-in and I'm stuck and I can't remove it. Correct? So it should be managed in that. Okay. What is the biggest asset of financial planning? Now, let me tell you, especially all the youngsters here or whoever are there, let me tell you one of my favorite stories. And the biggest asset in financial planning is not money. Okay. And I'll tell you what exactly it is. This is one of my favorite stories, a game of chess. You know, there was a king who really liked any poet who would come and speak very high about him. So he said any person who would come and give a, speak something high about me, or he would probably write a poetry about me, I would give him a gift, whatever he wants. And there was this very intelligent poet who came and spoke some few verses in praise of the king, and the king really loved it. And he said, very good, what do you want? And he said, I want rice. Now, those days, rice was one of the cheapest commodity available. So the king said, you want just rice? I'm ready to give you gold. I'm ready to give you livestock. I'm ready to give you land. He said, no, I just want rice. So he said, how much rice do you want? So those days, everybody used to play chess, and chess has 64 squares. And he said, I just want you to keep 1 grain of rice in the first square, 2 in the second, 4 in the third, 8 in the fourth, and just keep multiplying it by 2. Okay, the king said, oh, that's very simple, I'll keep doing it. And he automatically started putting 1 grain of rice in the first square, then 2, then 4, 8, and so on. And the poet said, whatever in the end I get, I will just take it and leave. The thing happened that it started increasing so much, and at the 52nd square, not even 64, 52nd square, the amount of rice was so much that the king had to sell his entire kingdom to fund so much rice. Correct? And it is said that if it had continued till the 64th square, the amount of rice could probably be equivalent to cover the surface of planet Earth. Right? That is the amount of power of compounding. Right? What is compounding is? Compounding is nothing but if I put 100 rupees and I get 10% on that, next year I get 110. The year after that, I get 10% on 110, which is 11 rupees, not 10 rupees. So 110 plus 11 is 121 rupees. This is compounding. Okay. I'll give you one more example. If I put 100 rupees for 100 years, that is, I've just invested 100 rupees once for 100 years at 10% compounded. That is, every year the money is compounding by 10%. What will be the value after 100 years? Now, why I'm saying 100 and all, I'll come to it. What is the value after 100 years? The value is 13.78 lakhs, approximately 14 lakhs. Correct? So 100 rupees for 100 years at 10% is almost 14 lakhs. At the same time, I just make that 100 years into 200 years, double. 100 rupees at 200 years at 10%. So for 100 years, it was almost 13.78 lakh. For 200 years, the answer is not double. The answer is 1,899 crores. Now, the reason, you can all try this in Excel, it's very easily doable. Just to tell you, nobody is going to live for 200 years here. But the reason I'm saying is, this is how money compounds. Correct? And the biggest advantage to all of you all, especially since you are so young and you are in the youth, the biggest advantage is you have 10, 20, 30 more years to compound your money. So it is not at all difficult. Only thing, you have to start early. So Warren Buffett, one of the biggest investors in the world, and once upon a time the richest guy. Now obviously it is taken over by the Tesla fellow, but one of the richest people had said that I started investing at the age of 11, and he said, oh God, I was late. Correct? So get into investment. I'm not talking about trading and buying today, selling tomorrow, nor rather than proper investment philosophy. And believe me, it is very simple, it is easy, and you would be able to achieve most of your goals if you are able to do with your goal planning exercise. It's not at all difficult. Okay, but if you don't start investing, inflation compounds. What is inflation? Inflation is the rate at which value of money falls down. So for example, if I say today's inflation is 5%, just an example. So if you keep 100 rupees under your pillow, you don't invest it, just keep it under your pillow. Next year, though it looks 100, it's already become 95, because the value of the money has dropped by that much extent. Same applies to other costing. And please understand, in this, lifestyle inflation is even more dangerous. What is lifestyle inflation? I would like to buy a Maruti Alto or the variant of that, but inflation has not happened much in that case, but I am buying a Honda City. That is lifestyle inflation. Buying organic food. I was, too much into, I was a very overweight guy a few years back, and I started working on it, so my budget has gone up because I use a lot of organic food in my diet, right? So this is also a part of lifestyle. So a milk is available at 40 rupees, but when you buy an A2 milk, it is 80 rupees. So then the inflation is not 5-6%, it is 100%, right? So that inflation is also very different from family to family. That has to be understood. Okay, today's scenario. Okay, I'm a BCom student, and I remember, whenever my balance sheet used to not tally, we used to put something called as a suspense account and tally it. Right? I'm not giving you ideas, but that used to be the case. So whenever I talk to the youth, I talk to a lot of people. I say that I get an income, I spend everything, and saving sometime is the suspense account. It is a suspense. I don't know how it happens. The reason is because from 20 years back, 25, 30 years back, the amount of options available to spend were very little. I still remember I used to get, when I was a kid, I used to get new dresses only twice a year. I come from a very middle class family. I used to get dresses twice a year. One was the Tamil New Year, and second was Diwali. Correct? These were the only two times, and I used to really be excited about these 2 days in a year. Today, nowadays, when you want to shop, you go to some very dangerous place called as a mall. You've been to a mall, it's a very dangerous place. I'll tell you why. Because before COVID, we would go to see a movie. Correct? Theaters are never in the ground floor, they're always in the top floor. I have to actually go through all shops to see them. Sometimes I used to take a lift, then they started making transparent lifts. So that became even more difficult. So you would go see a movie, come out with 4 bags, 3 you don't know why you bought. Correct? So that used to be the problem. And that is still the problem. And now this mall is in your mobile phone. You can actually order online. So income minus expenditure is equal to savings is become a very normal thing. Your savings will always be a balancing figure. What it has to become is income minus savings should be expenses. First, reward yourself. When will you reward yourself? When you know what are your goals, when you know what are your needs, when you know what are your desires. Why are you investing? What is the term for investing? What is the occurrence of that investment? Only then you will be able to arrive at this formula, or else at any point of time it's very easy to dwindle and go back to the original formula. Always keep this in mind. Income minus saving should be expenditure. First you provide for your needs, and then whatever is left you can look at it from that angle. Once that is done, you are almost sorted in terms of your finances. At all age levels, this many times does not happen. I'd like to give a Swami's quote here, which I really am impressed with. At all times, I've been reading about. I again and again read it, and it gives me a new meaning all the time. Where he says that finance should be is like blood and should always be in circulation, which is true. But finance likewise should be compared to a shoe, which should neither be bigger nor smaller than the size of the foot. Correct? He's actually stressing on the fact of need, right? Which is so crucial. Hence, finance should be proportional to individual basic needs. So once you write your goal sheet, you know what's your need, you get involved in some kind of a social work or a seva work, automatically it will help you understand what your needs and desires are. Then you start planning your finances. Believe me, it's a tried and tested method. It's very difficult for you to fail. You will always end up doing well. Correct? One of the things which I learned towards, because we got a lot of queries saying what do we learn from this pandemic. Please understand, many people lost their jobs, many people had a reduction in income, but end of the day everybody realized that our needs are very less. There was a drastic reduction in people's expenses, because at the end of the day, what do I need? A roti kapda makan. Correct? So that has led to a lot of help to them. So right now this is a great teacher for all of us, for you to actually sit down and say, hey, is my needs really so much? Let me actually look back and see how much it actually is. And believe me, you will realize that you are very well placed in life compared to what you are actually thinking. Contingency funding. Okay, one of the important parts before you start building, when you start constructing a building, you would first construct the plinth, the ground floor first and second floor. You should not jump to the fourth floor first, it will fall down. So before you start your financial planning, you should first have emergency funding. Whenever there is an emergency could be loss of job, it could be health issues, like every time there cannot be a cashless mediclaim, you can have health issues, like even now during pandemic we have heard of so many cases where people got admitted in hospital and the bill were soaring high, correct? So you need to be ready with your contingency fund, where the priority is not to add interest, but the priority is exactly to be ready with the money at all points of time, as liquid as an FD probably, correct? And asset allocation. Asset allocation is you should have a proper balance of your assets, right? So it should not be only skewed towards one particular asset class. It should have a proper balance. That balance will depend on your goals, and that is why I keep on telling you, first you do that particular exercise, correct? Before I come to the tools, 5 points which you need to understand, I will talk about certain ratios, right? Liquidity ratio. This is especially for people who are working and who are having an income, or you plan to start later. You should always have 6 months of expenses liquid, not necessarily in your savings account. It could be in an FD also. But if tomorrow there is a loss of job or anything like that, your house should be able to run with 6 months of expenses with that. Savings ratio in India is about 35 to 40% of your gross. If it is above this, it's fantastic. If it is below this, there is a need to self-introspect. Asset to liability, generally your liability should be half of your assets, or your assets should be double of your liability. That is the general thing. So God forbid something unfortunate financially happens, you can settle your liability immediately. In many cases we have seen the other way around, where your loan outstanding is twice as much as your actual assets which you have, correct? So there we are in a situation which is probably a red zone and we'll have to come out of it. Loan EMI, so as a ratio, more than you can opt for 40% of loan on EMI. 40% of your in-hand salary can be your EMI, but my sincere request is, please do not keep it beyond an extent. If you're able to save 40-50% of your income and you end up paying some amount in taxes, don't go more than 10 to 20%, and think 10 times before you really take a loan. Just because it's easily available, don't do it. It should be as if you're borrowing from a friend, so you have to think 10 times, and this friend charges you an interest as well, correct? Steps in financial planning, I have another 10 minutes, so I will just go through this particular thing. So when I said these are the 5 steps, again I would like you to note it. This is just a gist. How do I go about managing my financial planning? So the first step is direction. Okay, as I told you, this is basically your goals, which I had mentioned before. Why I say direction is, as I gave you an example of Uber and Ola, the minute you get into the car, the first question is where you have to go. Exactly. So the first question is, if I'm investing, I'm saving for what? Okay. And in that format which I mentioned, please write it down. A lot of clarity will come there itself. Second is understanding your current financial position. Okay. These 3 terms are there, which we many times use: assets, liabilities, and cash flow. Okay. There is a book which is there in the next slide, which I would like all of you all to read, especially college students, everybody. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. This is by Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, this book is available in a lot of languages. I strongly recommend everybody to read, especially the students. Right, a lot of clarity of finances will come here. Okay, in terms of what is an asset and a liability. See, let me tell you what is an asset. If I have this ring also, it's technically an asset. If I ask an accountant, he will find out the grammage and he'll put it in the balance sheet, which is good enough. But please understand the emotional connect. I will never sell this. Similarly applies with self-occupied properties. A lot of people are staying in a property and they love when the price of the property goes up. You know, they say that, okay, I bought it for 5,000 rupees a square feet. Now I'm getting 20,000. So what? Am I going to sell it? Looks very unlikely. Am I going to sell a part of it? Can you sell a kitchen? No, it's not possible. Correct? What happens? Nothing happens. So many times elders say, this property is for this son, this property is for that son. Automatically you have earmarked it. Now, there is an issue. Tomorrow, if real estate markets don't pick up, they are not doing well, still you're stuck because you have mentally thought that this is for both children. The both children might not be in India also, they might be abroad. And from there, coming and managing this property could be a headache for them. But still this happens, right? So please be clear on what is an asset. A car is an asset. Okay, it's taking from point A to point B. Every year the value is actually depreciating. If I'm in the business of cars, then it could be an asset. But if it is used for my personal use, then you have to really think if it's an asset or liability vis-a-vis the other option. vis-a-vis me taking an Uber, vis-a-vis me taking a rickshaw, or vis-a-vis me traveling for whatever. This is the way you are supposed to understand what's an asset and liability. And why I'm saying is, many times people fall in love with their assets, okay, with their FDs, with their mutual funds, with their equity shares, and they don't even cut the losses and come out of it at times just because they are attached to it. And that creates a problem later on. That is why many times when you go to a third person or a planner or a person, he looks at it in an unemotional way, or you have to look at it in an unemotional way. Automatically, you can do it. Liability should never take so much of priority in your life. It should be as low as possible, as easily you can settle it as possible. Please be very wary of the interest rates. Okay, a lot of people take credit card and pay the minimum due. Please understand, it comes at a huge cost. It's 36 to 40% a year. None of the other investments can religiously give you this year on year. So before investing, please ensure that all that is clear, right? And cash flow, as I initially told you, you have to manage your cash flow and track the expenses, right? In the investment types, when you come to the third part, second part, asset allocation, as I told you, just like you have a thali, you have 5 options here. Equity, which is investing in somebody else's business, correct? This has to be long term, 5 years, 10 years, right? Debt, which is more of fixed income, something like a fixed deposit. This predominantly try to keep it from a short term perspective. For goals which are maturing in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, look at more of debt. And as you're moving towards long term, you can have a combination of equity and debt. Real estate predominantly is a place to stay. Okay. The problem of real estate is it's very demand supply oriented. So if tomorrow, like what has happened currently in our entire country, is that the supply is huge vis-a-vis the demand, automatically it starts flattening or coming down. And now with this work from home culture, probably it could have a further impact. So think twice before making an investment there, because anyway it's a huge cost. Fourth is gold. Gold is a very interesting metal. It works on the concept of fear. So anytime if there is fear, whether it's because of COVID, whether it is because you feel a country is going to go in a state of war with somebody, gold prices will shoot up. And that's what happened sometime back. The minute there is clarity, there is vaccine, the countries are into disengagement with their troops, automatically gold prices start correcting. But when this will happen, we never know. So it should be a part of the portfolio. But please understand, not through jewelry or not through anything like that, which you get emotionally attached to. You have other things like ETF and online gold investments where you can keep it as an asset allocation. And cash is the liquid money you should have at any point of time. In your bank account, you can have 3 months expenses, and a fixed deposit or as a contingency fund, you could have about 6 months expenses. The combination of this will depend upon your goals. So first the goals, second is this investment type, and this is your asset allocation, which is like a proper thali. Just like I go to a restaurant to have a thali and I have roti, I have sabzi, I have dal, I should have equity, debt, cash, gold, and to an extent real estate if required in the particular portfolio, so that at all points of time my risk and return is managed, right? Then after you do that, then you choose the product to achieve your goal. This should be the third step. 90% cases immediately jump to a product. Array, this script is doing well, let's invest here. This fund is doing well, let's invest here. This real estate is doing well, let's invest here. The first two steps are not done, and you are automatically jumping to the third step. After a point of time, it probably, if it doesn't fit into your financial planning, it could have a lot of impact on your plan and could actually get your returns down, correct? Because you might end up doing certain radical decisions. So please don't do it. I was classic case was last 3 years till 2017-18, the stock markets and the mutual funds and all that did not deliver much returns, and a lot of people lost patience who had not done their goal plan and tried to come out of it. And when during COVID happened, everybody expected that these markets are gone for a dumps. It is going to take at least 2-3 years to recover. In 6 months it has doubled, correct? So nobody can predict all this. So what is most important is have your goals in place, do your asset allocation, and then choose your product. The chances of you to go wrong are very, very less, right? Then you select the product and implement the plan. If you keep on, for example, after doing all this presentation and these things and listening to the advice, if you just sit on it and don't go and actually work on it, automatically inflation and other things start playing. And what happens as an impact is your finances over a period of time gets hit because of delayed cost from your side. There is a cost to delay, whether it is whatever, whether it is also getting up in the morning, going for a walk or exercising, whether it is investing, whether it is taking up some good habits, everything Every day of a delay is a cost. So please ensure that you start it as of today or as of yesterday when required. And most important, plans are always dynamic. Taxation laws are dynamic. Incomes change, expenses change, requirements change, needs change, desires change. So your plan also has to be dynamic and should adapt to these changes. So the most important thing is you have to keep revisiting this from time to time. So at any point of time, it should not be that I bought a particular product. I see a lot with insurance policies. People buy it and don't even open the packet or the policy document for 10 years or 8 years. They've not even read it. It's a contract. It's a 25-year contract, right? At least once you should understand that particular thing. So people don't do that, right? So one thing which you need to do it is for students, or you can even tell your parents, for example, taking stock of your finances at least once in 6 months is a major, it's a compulsion. It's like getting your medical test done every year, right? Like that, you have to do your financial test at least once or twice a year, right? Just ending with the mistakes which we do. Okay, first and foremost, loan spiral. Here one of our brothers, Dinesh, had mentioned this point, and I think it's very valid. A lot of these fintech companies start giving loans, have started giving, at very high interest, and I have personally come across cases where people have actually got stuck badly because of these, where they think it's free money. There is no free money and there is no free lunch, right? Especially in the financial markets. So don't get unnecessarily involved in loan. Don't leverage too much. Okay, and don't fall for these things, right? Especially things which are so addictive, right? You have online games now where you can do betting. My sincere request to all of you is be very, very wary of it, because the problem with all this is you never know how much you slowly get sucked into the system and get involved, and you start betting large amounts of money, and then it comes at a huge cost. Let me tell you, only success stories of these things come out of 100 cases. If there is one or two success stories comes out, 98 failures never come out. And that can be, we have faced with certain clients where it has been very, very devastating. So request you, please don't fall for this. Do it in a proper and a systematic way. Comparing asset classes, this is specifically for people who are already investing. Many times your equity doesn't give you return, you start seeing, oh, if I'd put in FD, it would have given me good return. Or if FD doesn't give you good return and equity gives you good return, you start thinking like this. Please understand, both are separate. Don't compare asset classes. Just like you cannot compare one child with another child, everybody is unique. Same way you cannot compare asset classes. The minute you do this, you have a high chance of messing up your finances, because all of them have their own purposes, have their own goals. So please do not do this comparison thing. In the same category you can compare, there is no problem, but comparing across asset classes becomes injurious to your financial. Waiting for something to go wrong and start planning. Okay, let's wait, let's take time. Okay, and time, as I told you in the chess game, the biggest asset of financial planning is not money, it is time. If you start early, you can actually do a lot of things very, very conveniently and very easily. So don't wait for something to start go wrong and start planning. Do it immediately. Lesser quantum of investment. People sometimes invest as if it is charity. Okay, I've started 1,000, I've started 2,000. Depending upon your requirement, you have to understand how much to invest and then start the thing. Correct? Because after a point of time, just giving some small bits of investment is not going to make a substantial difference in your financial life. So many people invest, as which will come to the next slide, invest only to save taxes. So sometime back there was an infrastructure bond issued by government for 20,000 rupees. Many people suddenly had 20,000 rupees and they started investing because it was giving a tax benefit. Next year they removed it, nobody invested. Okay, please don't invest for tax saving. Tax saving is decided by the government and the finance ministry for the holistic country. It is not for your and my goals. You have to invest looking at your investment options. Certain people also also keep loans, etc. on because they are getting tax benefit, which is so sad, because you will end up getting maybe 30% of interest benefit, but you will pay 100 rupees to a bank. So it is not that if you save tax, it is everything. Okay, sometimes paying tax also makes sense. Sometimes investing much more than your tax saving also makes sense. So you do it as per your requirement, not because there is a tax saving thing. Tax saving can be an add-on to an existing investment. Most important, again a point, please don't evade them. Planning is different. you do a proper ATC deduction, you do an ATD deduction, you look at all that. Don't try to do anything by evading them. This is very short-lived. Okay, over a period of time, either you come into a penalty or you face a big repercussion of it. Pay your taxes completely, fully. There are hundreds of options available for you to be able to increase your wealth after being very, very correct with the system. Don't try to do anything which is not legal and which is not ethical. It sounds very interesting, sounds very attractive, but please don't do that. Investing unrealistic returns of investment. Very soon, in a year's time, by the time we finish, probably we reach March 2021 to April, you will have a lot of companies showing their 1 year returns, which will be fantabulous, because you had equity markets at almost 25,000 and now it's at 51,000. I'm talking about the Sensex. You will see double returns. Okay, and it will be a big amount of advertisement across, where they will say, see, we generated this much in 1 year. Past is not determinant of the future. Okay, so please understand that don't fall for these unrealistic returns. Be very realistic in what to expect. And please, also, the fact is, if one asset class has given you a lot of return in 1 year, there is a high chance next 2-3 years it will compensate that. So ensure that you are very balanced in terms of your approach on financial planning. Don't neglect to reevaluate your investments. As I said, a review at least once in 6 months or once a year is very, very crucial. I would like to end this session with this particular quote by Swami, which says, start early, drive slowly, reach safely. This doesn't apply, this applies to a lot of things in life, but I think it is one of the most important things which I've learned in financial planning. You start early. Early means you start researching about it, reading about it, and start your activity today. Okay, you drive slowly. There is no hurry. There is nothing that if you don't invest here today, something will happen tomorrow. Nothing like that. Go in a gradual way. Believe me, you will end up reaching safely. Okay, so because what happens is, people don't do it, and there is some amount of hanky pankiness which happens. Okay, suddenly they having financial difficulty, right? So they take huge risks in their investment. When the market falls, or somebody comes and tells them, they can look at these kind of derivative options, and they try to invest that in desperation, and that leads to a lot of debacle of finances. Managing your money is very, very simple and very, very systematic, and that is what that is what happens during financial planning. It is very, very systematic. All you have to do is follow discipline, understand your goals, work towards it, and automatically you will achieve your financial success. I would like to conclude here, and I'm really thankful to all of y'all. In case you have any queries, you can mail it to me. Other than that, I would like to sincerely thank the Seva organization, Satya Sai Seva organization, especially the youth wing of the Mumbai Metro, to conduct this. The best part is they're looking at holistic well-being for all of y'all, which is great. During our times, we never could attend such sessions. During our times, we never had access to such things during college times. So looking at a holistic well-being, whether it is health, whether it is wellness, whether it is mind, which is spiritual, whether it is financial, all this balanced approach will actually lead you to lead a very good life. And I wish and pray that all of you achieve financial freedom very, very soon, in a very correct way, as well as Swami says, start early, drive safely, and start early, drive slowly, and reach safely. Thank you to all of you all, and sairam.
Thank you, brother Mukund, for this enlightening session. As brother Mukund spoke about ceiling on desires, Satya Sai Baba says life is a long journey. Less luggage, more comfort makes journey a pleasure. So ceiling on desires is what we all have to adopt today and be smart with our financial choices. I take this opportunity to express gratitude on behalf of all the students and Satya Sai organization. We are sure this session will help our young friends to become smart investors with good financial acumen. To connect with us on our social media channels, kindly connect Satya Sai Young Messengers and Satya Sai Seva Organization Maharashtra. Finally, we will end this session with a small prayer. Thank you.
Sairam, Brother Mukund. Thank you very, very much for. No, you shared a very great insight on the financial planning. We look forward for such more and more session on a face-to-face mode at the Dharmakshetra with our all the YAP colleges. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, brother. Loving Sairam.
श्रीनारायणतु पुरुषोत्तम गुरुतु सिद्धबुद्धतु स्कन्दविनायक सविता पावकतु सविता पावकतु ब्रह्ममस्तु यह्वशक्तितु येषु पिता प्रभुतु रुद्रविष्णुतु रामकृष्णतु रहीमतावतु रहीमतावतु वासुदेव गोविष्णुपतु चिदानन्द हरितु अद्वितीयतु अकालनिर्भय आत्मलिङ्ग शिवतु आत्मलिङ्ग शिवतु आत्मलिङ्ग शिवतु
समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ